Have you ever watched everything you worked for disappear in an instant? That's exactly what happened to me. One moment I had stability, savings, and trust. The next, I discovered my own wife had drained my bank account. But what I did next turned her betrayal into her worst mistake. Stay with me, because this story will show how clever strategy, patience, and determination can change everything. Asterisk, my name is Ryan Matthews. I'm 40 years old, living in Florida, USA. I'm a regular guy who built my savings over years, trusting my family and planning a secure future. I never imagined betrayal could come from the person I trusted most. This is my story. Life with Jessica felt comfortable, steady, and predictable, or at least I thought it did. We lived a middle-class life in Florida, a home we had worked hard for, surrounded by a sense of routine and security. Every morning, we shared coffee at the kitchen table, talking about bills, planning for future savings, and discussing small dreams. It felt like a partnership built on trust and shared responsibilities. I took pride in my discipline and hard work. Everything I did was to provide for our life, to make sure our future was secure. And I believed Jessica was doing the same. Yet there were subtle signs I should have noticed. Jessica was overly protective of our finances, taking secretive phone calls and disappearing to her computer late at night. At the time, I shrugged it off as normal stress or work-related business. Even with those hints, I had no idea what was lurking behind the calm exterior. I thought I understood trust, but I was about to learn just how fragile it could be. It started with a small, uneasy feeling as I checked our bank accounts. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the numbers. My savings dwindling fast, disappearing without explanation. My heart sank. Shock, disbelief, panic, and anger hit me all at once. How could she drain this account? Everything I had saved for gone? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, searching for some logical explanation. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was no accident. There were subtle clues, late-night computer sessions, secretive calls that hinted Jessica had been planning this for months, maybe even with help from an online financial advisor. When I confronted her, expecting excuses or at least guilt, she smiled casually as if nothing had happened. That casual facade, that calm act, made my frustration and disbelief even sharper. She had underestimated me, and that was the first real crack in her plan. At that moment, I realized this betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about trust, control, and testing just how far I would go to protect what I had worked so hard for. I couldn't just sit there and let this happen. I started reviewing every transaction, going line by line through our account history and hidden investments. Every number felt like a puzzle piece, slowly revealing a pattern of deception. Despair hit me in waves as I realized the full extent of what had been taken, but with each discovery came a spark of hope. I could see where she had made mistakes, tiny traces she left behind that could be used to my advantage. I reached out to a trusted financial advisor and a lawyer discreetly, careful not to alert Jessica. Together, we pieced together evidence, mapping out her movements and identifying accounts she thought I'd never find. Each discovery was a mix of anger, disbelief, and cautious optimism. And then came the twist. While tracing the transfers, I found evidence that Jessica had made a critical error, a trail of transactions she hadn't hidden properly, leaving proof I could legally contest. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I felt a flicker of control. The scales were starting to tip, and I realized this wasn't over. Far from it, it was just the beginning. I knew confronting Jessica directly wouldn't work. She was clever, and any rash move could ruin everything. So I focused on strategy, patience, and precision. I began crafting a plan to recover my savings and gain leverage. Legal actions were filed to freeze the accounts she had drained. Every transfer to unauthorized accounts was carefully tracked. I even set subtle traps, nudging her in ways that would make her reveal more without realizing it. The suspense was unbearable. Jessica suspected nothing, fully confident she was ahead, that overconfidence was her weakness. Then came the mini twist. Using the information I had gathered, I set up a controlled financial trap. She unknowingly triggered it, exposing her actions in a way that strengthened my position legally and strategically. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I felt control returning. The tables were turning, and the outcome was no longer in doubt. Court day, or rather, the day I presented everything to my lawyer and the regulatory authority, felt like the heaviest day of my life. Every piece of financial evidence, every hidden transfer, every trace of her deception was laid out meticulously. Jessica's confident facade began to crumble as she realized her plan was failing. Her expression shifted from smug assurance to outright panic. I watched her, trying to process the shock in her eyes, but I kept my composure. In my mind, I repeated it over and over. I never wanted to humiliate her, but I couldn't let her take what I earned. Today it ends. Each piece of evidence I presented was a step toward reclaiming control, toward justice, and toward exposing the betrayal she thought she could get away with. And then came the climactic twist. The authorities validated my evidence. My savings were recovered, and Jessica's betrayal was formally exposed. Control over my finances and assets was legally restored to me. Relief, triumph, and a deep sense of justice washed over me. This was the moment where months of deception unraveled, and the balance finally tipped in my favor. Back at home, everything felt different. The grief over Jessica's betrayal lingered, but alongside it was pride. Pride in the clever planning, the patience, and the careful steps that had allowed me to reclaim what was mine. Relief washed over me as I finally felt justice had been served. Have you ever had someone betray your trust financially? What would you do in this situation? This is just one story of betrayal turned into unexpected revenge. And there are more coming. More tales of deception, strategy, and triumph that you won't miss. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the most satisfying victories.